Well, joining us now, Admiral Arun Prakash, the former Chief of Naval Staff. Thanks, Admiral, very much for being with us. The Riam Naval Base, which is being constructed in Cambodia, not too far from Sihanoukville by the Chinese, it is relatively close to the Malacca Straits. What are the implications for India?
Well, firstly, Cambodia used to be a neutral country. They had undertaken to, not to get too close to China, but it seems that economic or other compulsions have forced them into the Chinese lap. So the Chinese are helping them build this port, which may be available to the PLA Navy for use when required. So I think there is no great cause for alarm, but there is certainly cause for reflection and for introspection on our part. Because for far too long, we've been focused on the micro issues. I mean, Eastern Ladakh, patrolling points, how many meters across the LAC and issues like that. The big game is going to be played out at sea in the maritime sphere. And a very essential component of China's great dream, Xi Jinping's dream, is the maritime component. And they've gone about it very meticulously and thoroughly. Each component of their maritime power has been looked at, whether it's shipbuilding, as you mentioned. They're prolific shipbuilders, and soon the PLA Navy will be the biggest in the world. Shipbuilding, merchant shipping, fishing fleet, Coast Guard, they've got every aspect of maritime power. So this is one more component of China's great maritime power that they've been contemplating. They, as far back as 2019, in their defense white paper, they had mentioned that they will be building or creating a series of overseas bases, which they need. What is their need? There are a number of issues that justify what China is doing in their own concept. One is that they are the world's biggest trading and manufacturing nation, and almost all their trade is seaborne. They need to protect it. They are also one of the biggest importers of energy. About 80 to 90% of their energy comes from overseas. That needs to be protected. So any given day, there are maybe 100 odd super tankers on the high seas, either heading for China or a Chinese port or heading back to the Gulf to refuel. So all this needs protection. They have invested, I think, over $1 trillion in their Belt and Road Initiative. And they are, meticulously enticing smaller nations into their network. So all this requires maritime heft. So this is part of their grand strategy. And they, as I said, they've gone about it very meticulously and very thoughtfully. So
Admiral, by virtue of our strategic presence in the Arabian Sea, in the Bay of Bengal, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, our gigantic peninsula, and our alliances in the Indian Ocean region, how well placed are we to keep track of what China is doing?
All right. So the point here is that we don't need to indulge in a tit for tat with China. We can't compete with them. They are competing with the USA. They're competing to become, a superpower sooner than later. So we are neither capable of, nor do we need to compete with them. We need to make sure that our interests out at sea, even on land, are not jeopardized in any way. And to that end, we have a very compact but very competent and professional Navy which can take care of our interests. We are also, as you mentioned, reaching out to friends in the eastern waters, in the Indo-Pacific, Vietnam, Philippines, Myanmar. So we've established, sound relationships in that area. And we can make sure that our vital interests are not jeopardized by what China is doing. And they, as you know, are aiming to achieve superpower status, which they will. So we can neither afford to, nor should we indulge in any kind of race with China. At the same time, we must make sure that we don't focus overly on the land issues. I mean, that's a micro issue. As I said, the big competition is out at sea. Big competition for influence, for power projection, for balance of power, whatever you call it, will be out at sea. And we need to focus more and more on our maritime strength. And by maritime strength, I mean not just the Indian Navy, but the whole gamut: shipbuilding, merchant fleet, Coast Guard, fishing fleet, undersea, exploration, etc. All these aspects need to be looked at much more closely than we have been so far.
Admiral, 3 points, which I did point out, in that report: India's sale of supersonic BrahMos missiles to Philippines, the transfer of a submarine to Myanmar, their only one, and a frigate, a corvette to Vietnam. How is this, how are these important steps? Because it's not too often in the past where we've supplied weaponry to other countries. The BrahMos is as sophisticated a weapon as the Indian Navy possesses in terms of missiles. How significant are these developments?
Well, so far, China has been having its way in the South China Sea. They invented this nine-dash line and staked outrageous claims. And when little Philippines tried to protest against it and went to the International Tribunal and won the case against China, China with great contempt just dismissed it out of hand. Similarly, they have problems with Vietnam. They have problems with most of the countries in the South China Sea. And they are small countries. And China has, the Chinese foreign minister at one ASEAN meeting, at one meeting in Singapore just told some country that you're a little country and we are big and that's how it is. So they have been indulging in bullying and hegemonic conduct. And what India has done is to help its friends to prepare themselves to stand up to China by providing the BrahMos is a very potent missile. I mean, out at sea, it can take out any ship approaching. Similarly, the corvette we've given to Vietnam is a guided missile corvette. The submarine for Myanmar is also pretty severe. So with these actions, they are also symbolic, whereas they are also actually strengthening our friend. Perhaps we could do more to pass on hardware. After all, China has ruthlessly armed Pakistan, not just with conventional weaponry, but also with nuclear weapons.
Sure.
So we have not retaliated or responded as we should have, but it's a good beginning. I hope we carry on in this strain.
Admiral, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thanks.